Welcome to another episode of the Kam Mj Show, where in Roots and Routes, we will be talking about an immigrant whose routes led him to Ireland in 2009. While working through different companies, he get to start his own startup in the field of data privacy. And we're going to explore how his roots are helping him to achieve his mission. So stay tuned, and we're going to go straight into the conversation with this founder, who is originally from India as well. Good morning, Aaloka.
Good morning.
How are you today?
I'm good. Fine. Thanks for inviting me.
So good to have you on the show, and I am looking forward to the great conversation and exploring more about you. I know a bit about your professional life, but we're going to have a great conversation around the roots where you come from, and then, of course, your interesting journey of being in Ireland, and especially with your startup. And we're going to talk a lot on that.
Sure. Okay. It's a pleasure to be here and be on this show. So
great.
It will be interesting to see.
Okay, so Aaloka, good to have you on the show. So for our audience, let's start with giving a very quick introduction about who you are, where you come from.
Yeah, sure. So my name is Aaloka Anant. And with the name itself starts the whole story.
Yeah, do tell about the story of the name.
When I came to Ireland, my name was Aaloka, no last name. So, because the place from where I come, you can have a name without a last name. So why did my father choose to not have a last name for me? Because most people have last names. Even my father had last names. His name was Anant Kumar Mohan. So why did he not choose to have a last name for me? Because I grew up around in 80s. And in 80s, the Indian system, the Indian society was divided into casteism. There's a lot of casteism. My father did not believe in it. So whatever last name he puts for me, I'll be associated to a caste or a group of people. And he was like, no. So no caste. You should be known for what you are and not for your parental thing or whatever. So he did not use the last name in my name. And that's how I lived for all my schooling, my college and everything, which I did in Muzaffarpur. So it's a small city, not a town, it's a city. So it's a bigger place. Historically, it has good importance. So Muzaffarpur is a city in the state of Bihar in India, where I was born and I grew up. And from there, I moved to do my engineering studies in BIT Sindri, which was the topmost college of the state, and one of the best colleges in India. From there, I moved to Bangalore. Everybody knows the Bangalore stories now. It was growing as a Silicon Valley of India in 2004 when I moved to Bangalore, looked for a job, got into SAP. Everybody knows SAP. I believe the enterprise software company, which is one of the biggest in enterprise software even today, even though they are not the biggest IT company, but they're a well-known name for enterprise software. So I was with them from 2004 to 2010. So good bit of journey there. After my engineering, I joined SAP. Then I decided to study more. In 2007, I joined MBA from IIM Bangalore as a weekend program. And that changed the whole thinking of who I am today. So the business studies were transformative. And after the studies completed in 2010, I started looking for business as in changing the world straight away. So yeah, that's a brief of who I am, from where I am. There are many other milestones which changed the way I think. But yeah.
Okay, good. So part of this show where we talk about roots and routes. So we're going to touch a bit more about your roots, especially from Muzaffarpur, from Bihar. And also very interesting where your father did not want to give you a last name.
Yeah.
But for certain documents, especially for your passport, and when you travel, it is so important to have a last name, right?
Yeah.
And one of my family member is going through the same thing.
Yeah.
I have to fill in first name and last name when you book a flight tickets, right?
True.
So there are some challenges, but I think his thinking was really good, that you should be known for what you do in your life and
Yes.
not what your last name is, right? And hats off to him at that time of the cycle where he was thinking so far ahead of it. So let's talk a bit more about your family, if you are comfortable with that. Who is in your family and how was it, your upbringing?
Yeah, so we had a joint family, so it's always family feeling which has stayed with me. I was third child in the family. So my father and two of his brothers, so my two uncles, with my grandfather. My grandmother was no more when I was born. So that was a family, a good family. Two sisters who were both elders to me. Now they're in India. Both of them. One is in Ranchi and one is in Delhi. And yeah, that's where I was born. Very say good childhood. I mean, early stages, because my father had a company. It was in the manufacturing of medicines. So it's a homeopathic manufacturing company. Only two such companies existed in the whole of India when he started it. One was Hanuman Labs and one was Ved Labs. So Ved Labs was the company. But I think unfortunately he started it in Bihar, and Bihar had a change of political powers which changed everything in his company, especially, which was thriving on regulatory framework. And the state's regulatory framework drastically changed, which was not in his favor. And yeah, I remember a lot of things from my father, even though he died pretty early. I was just in my first year in college when he left us. When he left us for his heavenly abode. He was a very good person as such, and I remember a lot of things from him. Because when he saw things were going bad in Bihar, he knew that he needs to relocate his company. But he was so much people focused that he decided that no, if he moves at that time in 80s and 90s, it was not so easy to settle your family somewhere else. Like today, if I want to go to America for expansion of my data privacy, I can go and my wife can take care of my kids. The social setup is stable. I don't need to bother that the kids are going to school properly and different systems are in place. But it was not the same case in 80s and 90s. So my father decided that he would let go the business down, but he would take care that my sisters are not dropped out of the school. They're not going and struggling somewhere else. And he was very much people focused. And he was like, okay, the next generation should be better than what he is suffering. So, and then he had his, my two uncles are younger than him. My grandfather was there. It's a joint family. So if he has left, it would have disturbed a lot of things. So he decided to stay there and he struggled for the business to survive. It did survive till he was alive. After that, it didn't survive. But then this is something I learned from him, that people are very important. And it's maybe a success, not success. I mean, he never left the company. So he was pretty much consistent on doing it. The company was good. But then I learned one thing very much from him. People come first. And you have to take care of people. Even though the company was not so good, his life was not bad. So we were good kids. Yeah. The people who he cared for were with him in his last days. And he could die peacefully, sort of thing. So, that's what matters. Yeah. So you have a peace of mind.
So you have some entrepreneurship in your blood, I would say, especially when you grow up, father being an entrepreneur and he was running a successful business. Yeah. And if I take one lesson out of it is you take care of the people and people will take care of the business, right? Yeah. So people are still so important, especially in this world of AI where, yes. we rely so much on AI tools to perform, but there is no replacement of people. Of course, you still need people to run certain AI products and tools, but yes. people are the backbone of every business. And I think our fathers and grandfathers have proven that over and over. Yes. And that's something for this generation and moving forward to also think of is, regardless of how much technology can advance, you still need to have right people around you.
Yes.
So absolutely, very, very great lesson from that.
Yeah.
Moving on to your college, talk a bit more about life out of your small town
Yes.
to moving to Bangalore and doing your masters. How was that? How was that study environment?
Yeah. So from the small city to engineering college, the engineering college was again very different from the city because, of course, I think many people get their first shock of the life and about how people behave. So in childhood, you're always protected and sort of family protected. But once you go to the college, you're living on your own. And then you realize the real parts of life, how people can be good or bad. And there you know to identify people. And the more tougher situations, like by the time I went to college, the family situation has gone very bad. The business was almost done. We were in debts and all that. So I learned to identify people. If you're in a good state, happy state, everybody is with you. But when you're in a bad state, who is with you?
Yes.
And this is not the thing on people, but then at the same time, you learn to identify people. That was my biggest learning in my college. Apart from, of course, engineering and computer science and technologies. And at that time, computers were just emerging, right? 2000 is when I started my engineering studies. Before that, I did a year for my father's company as well. So I had a bit of sales experience as the first job experience for me and selling in pharma. So it was a really different world altogether from being in a high school. From there, my father was like, yeah, you can join the business, but better you have your degrees. So that's when he forced me practically to leave business after high school and join and do studies. So that's when I started engineering. It was also from him, otherwise I would have been into business and it's a different story of life. So coming from engineering college, going to Bangalore was a straight shot. No choice. From college, it was the bust days of the dot-com boom. 2001, 2, 3 were not the good days for industry in general, and the same in India. If you wanted to join software industry, by second year in college, I decided that no, I should move towards the software and IT world. So it was very clear where I have to go. Bangalore. Bangalore days were good. So I joined SAP. Luckily, I was in the first batch of fresh engineers recruited by SAP Bangalore. We recruited 70 engineers and trained them. And that was my first interface to corporate. I thank SAP. There was a program called Campus to Corporate. We're trained with the best in the world. So that's thanks to SAP. It was really nice way of training people and onboarding them to the corporate culture. All good, but I always had this intent that I should do business and somehow, bring a difference to what I'm working rather than serve by writing code or doing, different jobs in a software industry. I started my first, side project. It will be side project because we couldn't create the company. But side project was to sell tickets of movies online. And I'm talking about 2007 in Bangalore. There were not even credit cards. So it was a pretty, probably we would have succeeded or not, I don't know. But that actually pushed me towards business thinking. And in the same year, I got selected for my MBA. Of course, I didn't get selected just like that. I was trying all the time. And then I got selected at IIM Bangalore. And then I decided that, okay, this business thing, which we hustled for around 6 months with two of my friends, they're still good friends. And then I decided, okay, it's not so much working. One of them wanted to pursue, I shouldn't say money, but better careers than startups. So we left that startup and then I joined MBA. So there I learned different things, how business sees technology. And that was one of the best experiences because then I started working as an interface between technology and business. So I think it may be looking very trivial to people in Europe, but being from India where most of the IT was created for Europe or America, the Indian digitization was much poor compared to the digitization in America, I would say first, and then to Europe. So we were working in SAP Bangalore for most of the companies in Europe or America. The software was sold in America and Europe. So interface to business was not so good. So my MBA actually forced me to think differently. And that's when I realized that software is nothing. It's a means to assist business achieve outcomes. And this was the main, lesson from MBA. Just to summarize everything, I mean, it was a very nice journey with the MBA school and SAP at the same time. So that's the journey from Muzaffarpur to engineering to Bangalore to MBA, and Ireland is a completely different story. But
we'll get to the routes part. I think my take on MBA is I haven't done one MBA. I have masters in security, but either you can do an MBA or you can run a startup for a year. I would say you can learn a lot more by running a startup for a year. So that is my personal experience, that you get MBA, hands-on on that. So one last point I want to touch before we get to the routes part. Indian food. What's your favorite food? What do you like?
Very good question. So I still have the best food, and I was reminded of this many times by my daughter. Like, what's your favorite food? And I always go back to, I've tried so many cuisines, but I still love the Indian rice pudding. It's called kheer in Hindi, and it's one of the best things I can ever have. Of course, it's the one made by my mom. So it's a different way of cooking, and cooking as such, food. I mean, you can cook the same dish in so many different ways, even with the same ingredients. And what differs is timing. Right? At what time you put what ingredient at what flame on the stove makes so different in taste. So I mean, Indian rice pudding is my favorite. Of course, I've tried many different things, but
Good. Next time my mom will be here, she makes really good rice pudding. So I'll make sure I invite you for some rice pudding and some nice meals. So let's get back to the routes part. And I believe SAP has a huge role to play of getting you ready for your routes, where you're going to be, when you move from a small town to bigger city, and you get to explore what the world is about, how software and business are so correlated to each other. And of course, the MBA makes a difference. So your foundation set up with SAP and your masters in India. So what route have you taken afterwards? Where you been after India?
So after my MBA, I moved to Honeywell as a senior business analyst, and that was literally clients in US.
Where is Honeywell? Sorry.
Honeywell in Bangalore.
Bangalore, okay.
Yes. So I joined Honeywell in Bangalore in 2010 April and continued for 1 year with them. And it was different from SAP, which is a product company. So there in Honeywell, I was with the services wing. And I worked for a Swiss entity, an American entity, and another American entity. So not going into details of there, but it was a different interface again than making products. Now I was like, okay, Honeywell has a business in US, Mexico, Switzerland, and you're supposed to improve the margins in business. Very different thinking. I worked for them while I was in Ireland. So that was the first time I moved to Ireland. And my thinking on non-Indian, I would say, because Europe, America, and many clients I worked for, started forming and taking a shape. If you have not worked with people in different geographies, they have a different impression. But once you start working with them, you see, I can take a call till 5 and then I'm off. And this is not what people do in India. So you start looking at life very differently. And I like that. So I like that approach of keeping professional and personal, identifying what is personal and what is professional in a different way.
I think that culture of work-life balance.
Yes.
I think there was a good exposure of, I would say, work-life balance to the Indian working culture.
Yeah.
Where when you work with international clients,
Yes.
they have, hard and fast, like 5 o'clock is the last meeting I want to take,
Yeah.
and I'm done. I'm going home with, for my family.
For my kids. Yeah.
Exactly. Where the Indian environment, I'm sure it is changing at the moment, but it's very much like, sometimes I would say it's like if my boss is sitting, I have to sit. Sometimes it's 7, 8 p.m. you are doing, and you come back in the 9 o'clock. So it is a very different environment, but I believe it is shifting towards more work-life balance. And especially with a lot of international companies now are based in India.
Yes.
And if you work for one of those and I don't,
Yeah.
we will be talking and we will like, oh, I finish at 5 and I have weekend free. I'm like, why I'm not getting that, right? So I think that culture is changing,
Yes,
and also
definitely.
this is also very good for, I would say, Indian workforce to they can get time for their own personal things, either it's a family or other activities they need to do.
Yes, true. And I think it's a mix of the intention, ambitions of the individual, as well as the life stage. So I got married, thinking about kids, and at that time you cannot have a different orientation, as you can't be so ambitious to kill your evenings. Otherwise, you will very soon go into a divorce mode. So it was the right timing for me, I would say. I don't know about others, but yeah, it's definitely a different way of how you live in Europe. Or maybe how you live after marriage. It was a mix for me, so I don't know, but okay.
Agree to disagree, but let's continue to that, right? So how did you end up in Ireland? Let's get into that part of the journey.
Yeah, so thanks to my wife, actually. So she decided to move to Ireland in 2009, so before our marriage. And then for me, it was, so at that time, we didn't even decide that we would marry or not, so we were just friends. So in 2010, when I moved to Honeywell, she has moved to SAP Ireland. And then it was like, okay, so we marry, and then what? Do you come back to SAP Bangalore, or I go back to Ireland and look for a job, or what? So at that time, I was confident enough that I would land up in a job, even though it was the recession was there in 8, and the jobs were not restored back. But then I wanted to explore abroad. So this is where this thinking on the work-life balance, how people live life, was hitting me. Then I decided, okay, I'll go to Ireland and look what I can make of it. The good thing what happened at that time is I was working associated with a startup in IIM Bangalore. It was in the NSR cell, so the startup cell of IIM Bangalore, and they wanted to expand in Europe. So the company is now it's acquired by Nutanix, so it's called Idea Device at that time. And when I moved to Ireland, the idea was that I expand Idea Device in Europe. The good thing and the bad thing happened that year was Idea Device got funded by Sequoia Capital. And Sequoia advised them to expand in US and not in Europe. So good thing was Idea Device was in a very good track because it got invested by Sequoia, and now there was no looking back. The bad thing was that, okay, Aalok, are you moving to US? I was like, I just came here, I can't move. So I just dissociated with them for that reason that, okay, I'm just here and I better look into more things here.
Would it not be very similar to how your father made the decision of not relocating the company because of your family? And I think you were in very similar situation where the company want you to relocate to US, but for the family reason, you said, you know what, I cannot continue on that journey because to me, family is a lot more important.
Yeah, so it's a mix of, I would say, a mix, of course. I mean, most of the decisions, if you ask me, there's not one factor, but there are several factors. My father's decision was much more deeper than this one because I just married. So it could have been that I was there if it was my company. As in, if I was a co-founder in Idea Device, I would have probably said, okay, let me think again and probably pull my wife because I will not expand family. But then I was more of an associate of the company and I was not driving the decisions there. So it's the mix again for both the things. But yeah, people factor was definitely important. I wanted to give time to my family and expand it, as in, we wanted to grow the family and live some days of the precious, first few years in marriage. So that was definitely a decision-making factor. And then I said, no, I'm not going to US. So very true.
Nice. Let's get to the Maya data privacy because I am so looking forward to having that conversation. First, it's really, really close to my heart because you are doing something which I haven't seen it, especially I'm in that security field. So summarize your journey, how you get to start Maya data privacy.
Yeah, so I was in Europe working for SAP again, and this was in a different role. I was in pre-sales in 2012, 13. I handled business worth more than 42 million as a program manager for HANA. So it's SAP's in-memory platform, which SAP started selling in 2012. I was all in data and how it can transform business. 2015 onwards, I moved to a different team and started working on digital transformation of companies. And if you look back 10 years from today, 2024 to 2014, what digitization you see today was not there. Definitely not there. E-commerce was not to this level. Companies were still on paper logs for supply chain and so on. So I loved the role. Digital transformation of many large companies, including British Petroleum, European Space Agency. I did the road mapping of how they would move to S/4HANA, so latest technologies. Doing all this around 2017, when we were selling machine learning. So it's machine learning in 2016-17 time. It was not so much popular as you see today, but I was doing that in 2016-17. And we ended up with another large telecom provider. I should not name it, I guess, but it's a large telecom provider based out of UK. And we presented SAP's machine learning technologies to them. All good. 98% was the accuracy of the predictions, which are software made at SAP, so very good. We presented them the solution, and the solution's accuracy was 55%. Almost 50%, so no need of such a solution. Yeah. Simple solution. Train your model with data from the telecom company. And once you train your model, the accuracy will go back to 90 plus. Cool, give us data. Answer? Obvious, no. You cannot get data to train a machine learning model. How will it work? There is no alternate. All the AI machine learning models need to be trained. So it was very clear for me that businesses would adopt digitization, but they can't adopt machine learning AI kind of things until we have something which allows them to use the enterprise data. Now, it's not the same as social media data or data which you have for entertainment and things. It was data which contains date of birth, which contains your call records. It's so sensitive. It can be so much misused. This is the reason why they were not giving.
Yeah.
Now it will never happen that the enterprises, the large organizations like your health sector, the financial services sector, they cannot use the data in the same way as Meta would do or as Google would do because you're just searching on Google. So it's a very different way how an enterprise organization can use data. So this was a kicker for me in 2018. And then GDPR came in June. So it was very clear that there's no alternate. Companies have to find something to use data, not only in compliance with regulations because of the reason of, because of the legal reason, but because it's so sensitive. The company itself can get into so much trouble. Forget about personal information. These are now experiences which I had as a B. If a company's recipe on how they build a product gets out, the confidentiality is gone. So they can never expose the enterprise data in the same way as you can do for Meta or Google. So my research started in that year. I presented a paper just for this challenge at Aarhus University in Denmark. And one of the professors was like, yeah, it's an interesting topic. Would you like to start the research with us? So a very good idea. I was like, yeah, cool. I mean, I'm intrigued. I worked in data since 2004. My first thing was CRM data. Then I moved into business warehouse data. I did my MBA, was in business analysis, HANA platform, which was all in data, digital transformations, machine learning. Now, okay, can you research? I was like, I was tuned to the idea. So I went back to SAP and said, can I do independent research? They were happy, yeah, sure. Outside of office hours, yeah, sure. So there was the agreement. It started with my research, and this started in 2019 with active research. So I started publishing papers through Aarhus University Association. That's the start of Maya, I would say. There was no Maya formed at that time, but there was an independent research on how you can use it. Starting in 2019, 19, 20, 21, I keep working on the research. I keep pushing this inside SAP, how we should do, how we should change things. And without naming any company or anything, I decided that this topic is much bigger than SAP alone. So it's not that we have to solve this problem only for SAP customers. It's a general problem, and it should be solved in general for all companies. So then I left SAP, and in 2022 June, so last year June, we formed Maya Data Privacy.
Okay. So if I summarize your problem statement here, there are a lot of technologies which depend on the data, and AI ML is one of that. For machine learning to operate at the optimum level, you need to model the data. But getting access to data was the challenge because of it's a personal data. It is highly sensitive.
Yes.
You cannot just share left, right, and center. So something has to be done with that data so that the models can use or third-party companies can use without having that fear that this is my data, I'm responsible for it. What will happen if this data get out of the hands or get leaked or anything, right? So it's all about we need something, but we don't know how can we secure that data to be used. And that's where I would say Maya data privacy comes and play a role.
Very true. It's a very good summary. And my interactions with companies on data started long back. They were not so worried on locking the data. So if you don't have to use it, there's so many tools. But when you have to use it, that's the biggest problem. There's so many tools to protect the data, lock the data. But the moment you say, I want to do a project in which we explore how we can improve this business process. There are so many AI tools outside, and I just want to test how it's going to behave with our data. Answer is no. So the only way to operate is, okay, so today, what you can do with it, you get into a legal contracts with the company, you're giving the data, they are responsible, same as you. GDPR has these measures, and most companies would secure themselves. So if there's a problem on the other side, what to do? But then that limits the usage because you have collected data for a certain purpose, and you cannot do anything more than that. If you want to do anything else, GDPR says anonymize it. And forget about GDPR, the company itself is so scared if a startup gets access to this data, or a researcher, and somehow the researcher is hacked. And you know what's going to happen. Now the call records are in open, and people can see, okay, this guy is calling this. It's so chaotic. And
so in layman terms, without going into the legislative requirements and all that part, what Maya data privacy do?
So we enable organizations, as in enterprises. You're talking about really good size enterprises, to use their locked resources in terms of data.
Okay. So you help them to use the data which is sensitive, which is highly confidential, in a safe way. How do you do that?
So with my research, we came across many technologies which are existing since 2007, including differential privacy, cryptographic, homomorphic encryption, pseudonymization also in GDPR terms, and there are several technologies which exist. So in our research, we continued to see which ones, and the answer was no one. So there's no one technology which can really solve the problem. So we then this is how most of the research and patents and things are like. Yeah, you have to define the right balance and combination of things which can achieve one desired result. So in our research, we came across these combinations. We came across new inventive ways of using an existing technology in a new way to make the data usable. That's the whole part. Plus, comply with regulations, comply with sensitivity requirements. Make sure that, okay, this is the data we are using. Now it goes out, there is a hack. What happens after the hack? Oh, the hacker sees, I can't find anyone. Useless. So for them, it's useless. But for the company, they can use this data for analyzing how better they can do business, how better they can improve their supply chains, how better they can test the software, how better they can train their employees. Like one of our clients is so happy. they enforced us to create the 2 business cases because it was helping them as well in promoting their business. They saved millions in training employees with realistic data sets. Forget about everything else, machine learning and so on. How well your digital transformation is adopted by employees of the company. It's so tricky until people start using the digital system. They always try to resort back. Oh, I'll do it in paper and pass it to a clerk who will, and outsource it to India on how this paper goes in the system. You don't want that. You want people to use this system. So you have to train them. Or who is today in charge of digital transformation, it's so difficult to make the users adopt the software. There are people who have used these systems for 30 years or 20 years and they are used to working in a given way until you give them a proper training. You tell them that it's so easy and it looks so easy to them. So this company we worked with, they used the first use case they had was training. They were moving from old systems to a new digital platform. And in a hospital, nobody is a tech-savvy guy.
Yeah.
So they have to train them. And if they train them on dummy systems, so you are trained on ABC, when you go to the actual system, it's C, D, E, F. So it was a waste. The whole training program was not working. So once they used our software, they could transform the sensitive data of like millions of patients. And then this data is very same how a real system would behave. So that after training, the productivities were so good. They loved it. And they started using our solutions more and more often so that they can improve their training. And then they went to testing and several use cases. Probably they'll go to machine learning and AI better and faster than any other hospital or a healthcare system. So it's just opening the doors on how well you can unlock the data you hold. It's all your ownership, but you can't.
So again, in simple terms, Maya data privacy put some sort of a protection around the data so that it can be used. It's not about locking. It's not about encrypting. There are tools out there.
Yes.
It's about how can you safely use that data in whatever environment you want to use. How is the journey so far? When was Maya was founded?
Yeah, so we started in June 2022, and it was very swift to launch products because we are prepared for the few years on research and everything. And the technology is pretty deep, so I would say it's in the area of deep tech. And in the deep tech, it takes years to start from scratch and build a product. Because we started in 2019 with research and independent research, it was very easy for us to formulate the first product. So that way, the first product we launched was in October, the same year where we were formed. People didn't believe us for sure. Okay, this you can do, and okay, how do you do this? And it was so difficult to explain to them because we did it. So that was the first product in October. We had several trials, several customers, because when you talked about this, everybody understands this straight away. But the solution, nobody knows. So they have to really try. And this was the challenge for us to onboard people and try. It worked out well. Talked to the CEO, the bosses in different companies, and they bought into the idea. They tried it. Many had benefits. We started with the free versions. Many used free versions to do productive work, and it was very helpful for them. I have recommendation letters. We got into paid mode from February. So February 2023 was the first customer we acquired with a paid subscription. We continued the journey to build better products. The first product was, of course, a very simple product where you can anonymize a file which you want to send over an email, or you want to send a file with data, people, their payroll processing, kind of sensitive data to an outsourced company. So that kind of sensitive data we already addressed with the first product. But then what we started with was enterprise data. So then the next challenge we picked up was a whole ERP system. That's not something you can build in 3 months.
Yeah.
So of course it was a bigger challenge. And working with a live ERP data, which can be transformed, you can, the attack surface. So if we talk about now protection and so on, the moment you give access to data, this is what happened at Uber, right? A single employee was hacked, and it led to 70 million records being in space. So the moment you increase access to, because in a production system, like, I am the sales manager, I can see whom I sold. And then a service guy can see. Nobody else. It's as simple as this. But now you make this copy and you say, I'll train people on how to service. I mean, that's, the moment you expand the surface area, you have very high risk. So there we come in picture. And you can run live environments with e-commerce systems, with ERP systems, CRM systems, and with anonymous data. So that was a bigger challenge, but yeah, we got a client on that where we built a solution. So it was first, of course, a solution on how they can do this. They were so happy. We did the first round in April-May timeline. It took, it took longer to get access to the data than it took for us to prove that it can be transformed. And this also tells the story how well it has to be protected.
That's good. So you are a revenue generating company.
Yeah.
And I believe you also got some investment and funding as well. You have a team across 2-3 countries,
yes,
I believe.
Yes,
so I believe you are on a right path, especially with what is happening around the startup ecosystem with lack of funding and the valuations are recorrecting. I would say, I won't say the word going down, but it is recorrecting. I believe Maya is doing really good. What's the future plans? We just entered 2024.
Yeah.
What's your plan for this year?
So we launched our fundraiser for the seed round in November last year. We are funded, the first round of funding we got is a pre-seed from Enterprise Ireland. So it's a very solid, it's not just money, it's a lot of mentoring, and one of the best in Enterprise Ireland is supporting us for the company's strategy, company's growth plans. We already have business expansion, like the 2 co-founders I have are in Germany with advice from Enterprise Ireland, including legal advice and everything else, which is it's very precious. So to do that, without Enterprise Ireland support, it would have cost us a lot of money. So not only the investment we received, it's a lot of, say, non-capital related advisory, which is helping us. We have team in Germany. One of the co-founders is in Poland. Then we have team in India for a lot of dev activities, so we keep the costs low. So the investor money is not going to be burned into all the things it's not about cheap development, but it's about quality development at a lower price. So we have presence in, say, 4 countries I already named, and we want to keep this on. So this year the aim is to close the investment round, plus in addition to VC investment, because we are revenue generating. But we're not as much revenue generating to get investment of 5 million from a VC at this stage. So to be honest, we know the limits and we know the startup space. We are listening to the investors. So we don't just go and give us money. We listen to what they say. They come up with metrics. They say you should have this to get this money and so on. We listen, we go back, we work on it, we go back to them. So we're very clear that we can't raise, as you said, the market is readjusting. We can't raise 5 million or 3.5 million, big money. So we are consistently working with investors on the minimum we need to survive for the next 18 to 24 months and grow, not just survive, but grow. Plus, we are working with the with agencies on European Union funding because the problem is understood by most people. We have higher chances. We have already secured first stage and we're going to second stage with deep tech investment in Europe. And there are multiple agencies. We have already crossed the first round of screening. We're going to the second round and so on, where we can receive non-dilutive funding in millions. So our approach is this two-pronged. Because as in startup world, you must be knowing you have to work on investments, products, customers, team, everything at the same time, right? So we're working on multiple channels, and by 2024 end, we plan to have more than 10. So we aim 16 projects this year, which should start, finish, be delivered from the customer side. We want to close our funding round with money from VCs plus money from the grants and so on. So 2024, and we do want to extend the team we have today into a more productive, more functional, and growing team. So all these three aspects we are focusing in 2024, with the co-founders joining in, with the morale of the team. Like, I would love to have them interviewed like this. I mean, everybody is very much spirited and very much encouraged to make this a success.
That's great. Best wishes for 2024 and beyond. And I hope you can close your funding round. I am a personal believer in what you do. Absolutely. I think from a security point of view, you are solving a really big problem. And I don't see any other solutions out there. So you are on the right track. So keep going. Just coming to the end of our show, I want to ask you to get a message to, let's say, people from Bihar, from Bangalore, where you're from, is what kind of message you want to give it to them from your journey. And also, I would say another message for an audience in Ireland is what you bring from your roots, what value that add to you, to your startup.
Mm-hmm. That's a good question. I would love to advise everybody who is here or who is in my hometown, who is in Bangalore, anywhere in the world. The most important thing when you're trying to do a startup, let's focus on this, because in general, to grow in life, it's always good to believe in yourself. So that's the clean message. Believe in yourself, first of all. And if you want to do a startup, or if you want to do change the world sort of thing, as in you want an explosive idea, make a difference, most important part is people. So you have to make sure that you have people who believe in you. And I like this line. It really hit me when I heard it for the first time. Like, there are so many inspiring lines. So if there are 100 people behind you, and then you think you are good because you will win the battle, there are 100 people behind you. Cool, you will win the battle. But if there are 100 people behind you because of you, you don't think they're behind you and then you will win the battle, but they think that they will win the battle because of you. Then you will win all the battles. You will win all the wars. So it's important to have that belief in people who are with you. But at the same time, they believe in the mission. They believe in you. And that's when you will succeed.
So it's like, if you want to be a good leader, you need to stand up and do it before other people start following and doing it, right? Yes. So you need to initiate that. You can't just say, I have 100 people behind, now I can stand up and do it, right? It has to be other way. You have to do the walk, you have to do the talk, and then people start following you.
You have to always walk the talk. So if you say something, you do it. Many times, in a startup, and like any startup founder will definitely agree that there are things we plan and we can't achieve, and we have to recalibrate ourselves. Good, all good, do this. But if you promise something to an individual, you have to try the hardest because it's very important to keep the morale of everyone who is associated with you. And if you can't do that, you can't help one person to believe in you, forget about the rest. It's worthless. So until unless you can have people who believe in you, who trust you, who else? The business we are in, like security, privacy, there's a lot which is depending on belief and trust. So like when we talk to companies, they love what we do, but we are a startup. So what's wrong? Why is it that they can't work with us? It's because we are a startup. That's the only reason. So of course there are different ways to get around it, and we are working with partners and so on. But it's all about belief.
and also it's about trust of people, right?
Exactly.
Even though if you have a great product, people need to take time to start trusting something.
Yes.
And this is where the brand value comes, right? Certain brands have built that trust over time, where you don't think twice to associate with them. Yes. If this is a brand A, I know who they are, I know their history, I like it, I go buy it.
I'll go with it.
Right? So I think it's about that brand value and that trust over time. Yeah. And startups don't have that time under their belt.
True.
And it takes time, right? But what I believe what happened is your initial 3-4 years is where you take time to build that trust.
Yes. True.
But then you rapid grow very much from there, right? So what we call in startup world is, you take 3 years to acquire first customer, and the next 10 will come in 3 months.
Yeah.
So that 3 years is what is taking you to build that trust with the people, and that's where it is.
As you very rightly said, so it's about the first few customers, and then it'll just kick off. So we are on that track pretty much, and this year we'll definitely make it. So,
good.
Thank you.
It's a lovely having you on the show. Good to learn a bit more about Bihar and also about your journey. Especially, I wasn't aware of how much research you have done before you get to Maya data privacy and get to that startup part. But it's a huge achievement on its own, and I believe Maya has a great future down the line. So, thank you for being on the show, Aaloka.
Thank you so much for inviting me. When I first, we talk about podcasts and videos, and it's always about what are you doing? But I really love the conversation because it's all about, in the industry, in the enterprise world mainly, it's about belief. You can't believe someone until you know them. Yes. So this podcast is very focused on getting the person. I really loved it. Loved the way you have the questions. So thank you so much. And I hope to talk again.
Yes,
thank you.
That's great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.